Okay, now let's test your knowledge of knowing whether or not a question is a good question or a bad question to ask in an interview. I'm going to show a few questions up on the screen and just think to yourself if it's a good or bad question. Okay, so what you might have been able to see from some of those questions is that the good questions are the ones that can yield a pass or fail. And ways to do that without introducing bias is to ask open-ended questions, ask about process, ask about actions, ask what, why, and how, and about specific past behavior. Bad questions are created when interviewers ask for things like opinions or speculation, or when they ask leading or multiple choice questions. So now let's talk about the usual flow of an interview, how to start, conduct, and then end the interview. The beginning is when you usually introduce yourself and you start to learn about their role and their responsibilities. You might ask questions like, what is your role at your company? As well as try to get to know how they fit in their company's overall structure. Now, I'm not going to go through all of these questions on the slide, but for this slide and for the next few slides, feel free to pause the video, take notes, or maybe a screenshot so that you'll have these suggestions banked for when you go into your interviews. But really, these are some of the questions you can ask at the beginning of the interview to get a good idea of whether or not you're even speaking to the right person. Then towards the middle of the interview, you can ask questions that'll get you to the real problem. Questions like, what are the top 3 challenges you face at your job? Maybe ask them to walk you through a typical day or a day during which they're experiencing the relevant problem. Ultimately, you want to understand the frequency and the intensity of the issue. Is this a big problem that alters their day-to-day, or is this just something that they deal with? Lastly, please thank them for their time. Always ask for referrals. And you can ask them if there was anything that you didn't ask them that you should have. This is just a good way to pick up something that you might have missed, and it also might extend the interview and have them give you more time than what you had expected. Of course, after the call, send a thank you note. Thank them for taking the time to meet with you. Also, try to use this as an opportunity to follow up on a referral if that's something they agreed to during the interview. Now, what happens after the interview? This is the time to go through your notes from the interview and extract the key aha moments. Be aware of the questions that worked or didn't work, and then alter your script for the next time. You might also want to document your learnings by maybe taking pictures of the buildings you visited or from some of the logos of the companies that you've spoken to. Maybe you can get a screenshot of the Zoom calls if you have permission from the person that you're interviewing, just so that you can remember specifics about that interview. And then if it's possible, try to get some quotes that really illustrate the problem that you can present in your presentations. So a good way to evaluate your big learnings is to highlight in a chart similar to this, what did you think? What did you do? Or who did you talk to? What did you learn? And what will you do next? And this is also a good tool to use in your presentations, just to show a quick overview of the hypothesis that you tested, the result, and then your next iteration. So to sum up some of the objectives and tactics of customer discovery, apply the scientific method, have a plan, specifically a hypothesis to test going into the interview, and get excited to hear the things you didn't expect to hear. Start with behavior, not feedback. Search for that behavioral data. You should be listening more than you're talking and avoiding self-validation. Also, work with the interviewee's schedule. Be proactive about setting up those meetings and always ask for referrals. So that's all I have on customer discovery best practices. Good luck with your first round of interviews, and please set up office hours with the teaching team to strategize, debrief, or brainstorm anything that comes up in the interviews or anything you want to talk about for your business model canvases.